Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mice, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
What day is it? Is it time?
Time has lost all meaning. What is time?
Yeah.
What?
Ruben Bressler.
Is this a weekday?
This
This is my normal existence. So welcome to living like a vagabond.
We're all
do
living
you
in a
do
closet
this?
now.
Yeah, we're all in the closet, y'all. Don't come out.
It's wild.
Goodness gracious. Well, look, we also began with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent and letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10, not shamans, top 10 tutors. Ruben?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of good picks this week, but this week's pick is Steve Wise from YouTube, who writes, "These lists never seem to give enough love to unsets. Probably because the cards aren't exactly tournament all-stars, but boy is Booster Tutor a wacky, fun card. For just a single black mana, you get to do what every Magic player loves to do. Crack a fresh pack of cards, and decide which of the 15 you want to add to your hand. While maybe not the most monetarily sound tutor, it can lead to wacky and fun situations in any unsanctioned game of Magic." You get it? Because Booster Tutor was reprinted in unsanctioned. And Silver Book, you know what? Never mind, that was a bad joke.
Nice.
That was all part of the comment, by the way.
Yes, that wasn't just
Nice
Ruben
and
riffing.
concise. Thank you.
Very nice. That's it. Congratulations to winner Steve Wise. Please contact Aaron on social media before she blocks you on all of them. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com. She already did this week already, y'all. You act like she don't do this. 2 already, just banging ahead.
All they had to do was be nice to my potato, and they couldn't even do that.
And see, you're nice to our potato. He's right over there.
That's right, my potatoes.
Man's got an emote. Like, Jesus. But thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway. And stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate. Yeah. But we are talking about the pingers. All right, so I clearly had, like a method to what a pinger is, what it means, what Ruben is doing to his glass. But my personal stake in this was a creature that has an activated ability that can deal damage to a creature or a player or a planeswalker or something, any target. That was my criteria, and it seems as though we picked some pretty diverse lists because we only have a handful of higher and same stuff going on.
Yeah,
I have a couple. Sorry.
Also say I didn't keep myself to just creatures. I have a couple artifacts and even an enchantment on my list. So shout out to Twitter. I was really, really busy with work today. Work is always busy around the end of quarter, to the end of the first quarter is coming up. And so I asked Twitter what they consider a pinger to be. And so I got a lot of really great responses. Most of the ones that are on my list came from Twitter. So thank you very much. But again, it was very open. People recommended artifacts. They recommended creatures, spells. They were just sort of one-off, kind of like Hornet Sting kind of things. Right. And so I like that we all kind of go in different directions, and I think we're going to have some great lists tonight.
Absolutely.
I have I'm pretty sure that all of mine qualify as pingers, no doubt. They're like repeatable damage sources that deal 1 or 2 damage.
Sure.
Most of mine are pretty standard run-of-the-mill pingers. We might get into a discussion about 1 or 2 of them, but I'm pretty confident that these are we're not going completely hog wild on any of these. None of these are as offensive as Leviathan. So
that Leviathan will live in infamy forever.
What was yours that was worse than Leviathan? I forget.
Oh no, that's when you said that the zombie one. That's when you said
Carrion Feeder was bad, but there was one that was just atrocious that I can't remember what it was.
That was the one you went off on. I don't know.
It was inexcusable.
It was. What are you talking about? This card's a tournament all-star. All right, so Aaron, what's your number 10?
So we're going to start off with one of my weird choices. This is not a creature. This is a great option in if you're playing any sort of budget commander. This is a card that you absolutely want in your list because it's great card draw. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but if you're also looking to do anything involving pinging, this is exactly where you want to be. I think I might have even used it in Standard for a brief period. It was reprinted in Standard in one of the core sets, and I think one of my black-green, do-nothing rock decks might have used it. My number 10 is Staff of Nin. Staff of Din is 6 colorless. It's an artifact that says at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, and then you can tap it, and Staff of Din deals 1 damage to any target. So if you are looking to play a really grindy game, this card is perfect. It just sort of whittles away at your opponent while you bury them in card advantage. It might have even been standard Jund I played this in, but that's exactly who wants it. If you have any way to reduce the artifact cost, which there's plenty of ways to do in Commander, this is great. You can also tutor for it if you want to. It's just simple, effective, and beautiful art too.
I recall this card taking a while for people to realize like how powerful it was. It's your own personal Howling Mine that you get every turn for the rest of the game.
That can kill people.
They can kill people, exactly. And keep planeswalkers down and deal with tokens. Yeah, absolutely. Spectacular.
Yeah, definitely a limited bomb, too. This card was unstoppable if you got to resolve this. It's insane. That said, Ruben, what's number 10?
Speaking of blocking, my number 10 is actually a wall. So all that it can do is block because this creature can't attack. It is a Pro Tour Championship winning card as a 4-of in mono blue fish in the hands of Sigurd Eskeland at Pro Tour New York 2000. 6 Rebels decks made that top 8, but mono blue fish won with 12 creatures. 4 Drake Hatchling, 4 Waterfront Bouncer, and 4 copies of Stinging Barrier. Stinging Barrier is a common from Mercadian Masks. It costs 2 colorless and 2 blue mana. So your 4 mana 0/4 wall has Defender and has the following ability: pay a blue and tap. Stinging Barrier deals 1 damage to any target. This was particularly good in the Rising Waters deck, of course, that the mono blue fish was a part of, because Eye of Ramos would get to untap every turn, so you could just finish people off with your Stinging Barriers, making it the main win condition in the deck.
Oh my god, you paid 4 mana for an 0/4 wall. That is Mercadian Masks, ladies and gentlemen. That is ridiculous.
Price is too damn high.
I swear it was not weird back in the day for blue to have the pinging, ability. It wasn't. It was weird later, because you're like, wait, that is a red ability, isn't it? And then they sort of put it on red cards and like planar chaos, and stuff, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is where it naturally belongs. Why is it there? That's weird. Well, my number 10, I got a chance to choose a card from Kamigawa because I love Kamigawa. And it's great. This card is crap. Don't worry. It's 35 cents. You get as many copies as you want.
We assumed because it was from Kamigawa.
Yeah, it's fine. It was a draft bomb, which was nice and all. But there was a couple of different sort of pingers in Kamigawa. There was a Frost Wielder, which was very similar. But the whole thing around the pingers in Kamigawa, I'm not sure exactly why, was all about, well, if you ping something and you kill it, you have to exile it. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's a thing, whatever. But all I know is I think this card is super cool. If nothing else, Kumano, Master Yamabushi, is an awesome name for a Magic card.
Yes, it is.
2 red, 3 generic mana for a 4/4 rare legendary human shaman. It has 1 red, 1 generic mana : it deals 1 damage to any target. If a creature dealt damage by Kumano this turn would die, exile it instead. So that's just a cool, flavorful, awesome pinger. And yes, the ability was crap, and it was so crap that even sometimes I would untap with it and I'd still lose because it's Kamigawa.
Right.
This bomb ain't bomby enough because that's how it works. I didn't get a dragon, but I did get Kumano, and Kumano is really great though. It's super cool.
Kumano's awesome. It's a good way to combo with your real removal to make sure that the dragons don't trigger, for example. So if your opponent had a Kokosho, you could ping it first and then kill it, and then it would exile it. That was one of the main ways I saw Kumano being used, because this was a very slow standard. Effects like Kumano's being mana sinks were a huge boon.
Yeah, God help you having to play the block format.
Yeah, boy.
They're one of the grindiest, craziest, slowest things you ever saw in your life. That was usually won through looping things in your graveyard with other
Hanakami.
Yeah, Hanakami.
I'm listening. That sounds great.
Yep.
37 turns later. All right. So we went here to number 9. Ruben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a pinger. It deals 1 damage to any target. However, it is not tap. It is instead sacrifice a creature. This is an equipment that was very popular for a very long time, and of course was in David Scharfman's Pro Tour winning deck. It is Mortarpod.
Yeah, it is.
Mortarpod is 2 colorless mana for an equipment that has Living Weapon, which means that the equipment enters the battlefield with a 0/0 black germ creature token attached to it. The equipped creature gets +0/+1 and has sacrifice this creature, deal 1 damage to any target, and it equips for 2. This was, of course, most popular in the Cawblade lists, that you could sacrifice all your Squadron Hawks and leftover Stoneforge Mystics to be able to keep stuff down. It was also really popular in like the blue-black and blue-red Zombies decks that popped out towards the end of those standards. Yeah. It's just a really good, solid equipment. Just good.
So in the Zombies decks, you had Grave Crawlers. You were able to really loop this thing so that you could get a lot of Mortar Pod value out of it. You were also running Geralf's Messengers. This was a way to sacrifice that, get that Undying trigger, and drain people. So there was a lot of really neat synergy with this. And it's funny, like I said, that's where I thought you were going at first, because I didn't know who that young man was. And I was like, oh, he's going to go for zombies. He's going to go for zombies. Oh, another deck I've never heard of.
I really enjoyed Living Weapon. I thought it was a really cool mechanic. Yeah. I like the idea of making a 0/0 and then like you got to do something, you got to equip it before it actually, before it kills itself due to state-based effects or whatever. Right. And Mortar Pod was such great inevitability, You'd be like, oh, you got 4 creatures and I'm at 5 and I can't block that. And all right, well, we're good here.
Board stalls, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was great for that. And it was such a bomb uncommon as well, which was awesome. Aaron, what's number 9?
My number 9 was an all-star in my Omnath Locus of Mana EDH deck. So Omnath was one of my first EDH decks ever, and I really appreciated, because I didn't build the deck, that Omnath was being done differently. Because normally when people build Omnath, they're like, it's a 40/40 with Infect and Trample, and just no subtlety whatsoever. And I wanted to go in more of a suicide direction. So my Omnath is very slow burn. I don't do anything for 32 turns, and then I kill you with a Squall line for 87. It's fine. And this was one of the cards that was an alternate win condition if I couldn't get a hold of my Hurricane, sorry about that, or my Squall line. My number 9 is Squallmonger. So Squallmonger is 3 colorless and a green. It was originally from Mercadian Masks, 3 power and 3 toughness, creature type monger.
Cycle of Mongers.
For Cycle of Mongers. For 2 colorless, Squallmonger deals 1 damage to each creature with flying, and any player can play this ability. You mentioned the color differences between blue-red and blue-ping and red-ping. Green had a pinger. Green had a pestilence type ability that anybody can activate. And so I would bank a bunch of mana with Omnath, play this, and then just proceed to kill everybody. If somebody's feeling particularly petty in a commander game, they can also pay 2. And so it led to some really political games. It led to competitions over life gain, who had the higher life, that could really manipulate this card in their favor. But just so many things I love about this card, that green has a pestilence, the politics behind it, the art is beautiful, and just one of my favorite cards in my Omnath deck.
It's got the 3 fingers. That ability is kind of weird and not totally garbage, and it's on an uncommon. I would expect that to be rare, quite frankly, in Mercadian Masks, which was weird. But
Warmonger was the red of the cycle, which dealt to 2 without flying, and I recall that one because it was a promo card. That was a promo foil in Duelist or Scry or Inquest, one of those. And they sent it to you like it was going to be a standard all-star.
Gross. Wishmonger was white, and you could give a creature protection of the color of its choice. Sailmonger would give a creature flying until end of turn. And Scandalmonger, target player discards a card from his or her hand. Which
as a sorcery.
As a sorcery, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. This is one of those, bad ideas from Masks. We're just like, all right, that's terrible, but we got to have the terrible to know it's terrible. And it sure does suck.
Reminds me also of Ifn Biffin Ifrit, I think is what it is. IFN, Ifn Biff, which has a similar ability from before times that no one remembers.
So that's the one that had the different art or the wrong art or whatever in Revised, something like that?
Maybe.
Or it used the art on Serendip Ifrit from Ifn Biff.
Yes, that's the one.
Anyway, speaking of terrible cards, got you one. Number 9. It's from one of the worst sets of all time. Dragon's Maze. But it is a terrific design. I love the design. It's flavorful as all get out. It is hilarious. It's kind of cute and fun and interesting. This was a card that got me excited because I'm like, okay, Dragon's Maze is going to have all these weird, wacky effects and Ravnica multicolored. Well, let me tell you, when you choose your targets at random, that's the good. That's the good. Goblin Test Pilot is a red, a blue, and a generic mana for an uncommon Goblin Wizard. It's an 0/2 with flying and has tap : It deals 2 damage to any target chosen at random, including itself. which is just brilliant. Like, I understand it can't have 3 toughness because then it would just be every turn something's going to get it or whatever. And it's also kind of hilarious that it could blow up itself, right?
Yeah.
The card is trash. Like, this card is like absolutely terrible, 100% unplayable garbage. I don't know how it got anywhere in any sort of development, but it's just fun. I like it because it's fun, so I'll take it.
I think it absolutely should have had 3 toughness. Like, what is the downside of the Goblin test pilot just throwing a bomb every turn? Like,
and he could still hit himself, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Take advantage of that. Deal 1 more damage to it and kill it, you know? But like, and that it may could have actually, you know, been a deck at that point, is that you could play multiple Goblin test pilots and that could be like a weird win condition.
I hate, God, this is one of the things where I just look at the card and I'm just like, why? Like, I open it in a booster pack that I'm drafting and I'm like, this could have been anything. And it's not.
It's funny that you mentioned this card because Alexis Jansen, who designed this set, this was the card she recommended when I asked for pingers on Twitter. So
I wasn't going to call her out, but you go ahead. It's fine.
Lovingly. Alexis' family.
Alexis is great.
Trans Mafia. We love her.
I've gotten to hang out with her multiple times. And I want to like Dragon's Maze. I've always wanted to enjoy it. But when bad is bad, we got to call it. If I
ever relaunch the deck tease in any capacity, she is one of the people I want to have on just so I can be like, girl, what happened?
What happened? At which point are we enough years away where you can tell us actually what happened with that?
I'd like to think, I'm a pretty savvy interviewer. I'd like to think I could get some details out of her. But
very nice. Let's move on here to number 8. Aaron, what's number 8?
My number 8 is the new love of my life. I've never really been a mono red player. I've certainly never been a Goblins player, but the last 2 or 3 weeks, all I can think about is Goblins. This is my new favorite commander deck. I've been testing this quite frequently. I think it's going in a really, really great direction, and it just makes me so happy. My number 8 is Pashalik Mons. So Pashalik Mons is 2 colorless and a red. He's in from Modern Horizons. Legendary creature Goblin Warrior, 2 power, 2 toughness. Whenever Pashalik Mons or another goblin you controls dies, Pashalik Mons deals 1 damage to any target. You can also pay 3 colorless and a red and sacrifice a goblin to make 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So I have a red Goblins Aristocrat deck. Which I am loving. I'm having so much fun. I've been playing around in Gather. I've looked up goblins so many times the last couple weeks. And this card just makes me so happy. If you have enough mana, it can turn into a bit of an engine in terms of you sacrifice 1 goblin, you get your damage trigger, you then make 2 goblins, you can do it again. You can pair this with sacrifice outlets like Goblin Chirurgeon, Goblin Bombardment. I've been having a lot of luck with Chiron Negotiations. You tap all your goblins to do damage, and you feed them all to something, and things get out of control very, very quickly. And I just never would have thought I'd have this much fun playing goblins, and it's all because of this boy right here.
Nice.
It is its own engine, which is so cool. It just, just give it a little tiny bit of fuel, and it just takes right off.
Yeah, I don't even have to attack with it, which is so different than what, you normally see with goblins, where it's like, turn up sideways. And he's also famously Mons Goblin Raiders. This is Pashalik Mons. And so that's a neat little callback there for those of us who've been playing a long time.
Oh, yeah, there were several goblins that came close to my list. I didn't end up putting any goblins on my list. But goblins have a long and illustrious history of dealing 1, maybe 2 damage to any target. Hopefully we'll talk about more of them as the list goes on.
Oh,
yeah. What is your number 8, Ruben?
My number 8 is actually a human wizard. I was hoping that it was going to be a witch because it's Quombage witches.
Ooh.
But it's not. I was a little surprised that they didn't update the creature type here. Quombage witches is black for a 1/3 human wizard and has tap. Quombage witches deals 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to any target of an opponent's choice. So this is an all-star in Pauper mono black devotion. Where it is your, 2-drop du jour. This is the thing you want to hit on turn 2, alongside your Chittering Rats and your Phyrexian Ragers and whatnot, because you're gaining a bunch of life off of Grey Merchant of Asphodel and some other stuff. And it builds your devotion. It's black.
Yeah, this is a 100% all-star in popper. Yes, it's going to let them deal a damage or whatever, but you don't care. Like it's worth it essentially to trade it off. The 2 black pips are important. Still waiting for this thing to be reprinted. It was reprinted in anthologies and chronicles, and that's it. Otherwise, it's $6 from Arabian Nights.
2 iconic pieces of art. Caio Foglio did the first version of the bodacious, the young lady in the white, young lady in the black, and then Seb McKinnon did a very eerie take on it recently with a younger lady and an older lady, which was a neat little dichotomy. And so, I don't play a lot of popper, but I absolutely remember that art. And if you can get either one of those pieces, absolutely do it because they're gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean that Seb McKinnon art deserves to be on a paper Magic card. That is incredible.
Yeah.
Did an amazing job there. So for my number 8 here, I chose a card that goes way back. It goes way, 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 way back. And I'm talking like, yeah, they haven't printed it since 10th edition, whatever. They've printed multiple cards that are like it. They reference it. It's very cute. There's even a freaking sliver that references this card. It is awesome. It shows up in limited edition alpha. And it had the wrong mana cost in alpha, which is actually is famous for that. Because God forbid you pay 2 mana for a 1/3 back then. Whereas now like 2 mana for your 4/4s, who cares? But in limited edition alpha, there was a card that has an orc that is strapped to a giant crossbow, and it's called Orcish Artillery.
Yes.
For what is supposed to be red and generic mana, 3 mana for a 1/3. It is creature type orc warrior, and it has 1 ability. Tap, Orcish Artillery deals 2 damage to any target and 3 damage to you. The ultimate, or at least one of the early cards that showed me sort of what your life total is worth, your life as a resource. Like, who cares if you're at 1 and they're dead, you win just as much as if you're at 20 and they're dead. So this is the type of card where you really figure out, where do you play many of them? Do you play too many of them? You just play one of them? Do you kill that creature now? Do you wait and just go to their head? This is the type of card that gives those time spell options.
Yeah, this card's great. I'm a huge fan. I'm so glad that you put this on the list. And it's exactly what an Orcish Artillery would do.
Yeah.
It was referenced in Orcish Cannonade, reprinted, or not reprinted, but like as an homage in Time Spiral, which is an instant version of that, essentially. And I love Orcish Artillery. It's great.
Yeah, this card is super duper cool. And again, I like it. And you'll see it throughout history. They'll make cards that do things like that, where it's like 2 to this and 3 to you. And you're like, oh, it's the artillery stuff. And again, they haven't printed it since 10th or whatever, but I'm okay with that. Yeah. Let's move on here to number 7. Aaron, what's number 7?
My number 7 is busted. And it's so busted that you have to go out of your way to not hurt anybody. My boyfriend just recently made this his new favorite commander, and the first couple times he took this deck for a spin, it was just devastating. And so he has had to try to put underpowered cards in here. He's not even playing good cards, but it's such a good card, and the way that it interacts with things can turn any card into just a weapon that ends games so quickly. My number 7 is Sir Conrad the Grim. So Sir Conrad is 3 colorless and 2 black. He's originally from Throne of Eldraine. Legendary creature, human knight, 5 power and 4 toughness. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. If that's not enough, you can pay 1 colorless and a black to make each opponent put the top card of their library into their graveyard. Mindcrank,
to make
Dreamborn Muse, Buried Alive. I did something the other day. We were playing a game with people, and I was playing Rakdos, and I was at 70 because I had to whip a Erebos out, and I was like, I looked at what everybody else was at, and I looked at what I was at, and I was like, I'm going to Rakdos Charm your graveyard. And so he exiled 17 creatures. Everyone took 17, and that was like setting off a bomb. And so when it takes ordinary cards and turns them into these burn spells. Forever Young becomes a burn spell. Or you can even just do kind of the ping thing and kill people that way. But this card is out of control. It's so powerful, it's just dumb.
Right. Note the activated ability there was for each player puts the top card, which is awesome. And this card, first of all, this is like trigger salad. Like, what is happening? Everything you do triggers this stupid card. Like,
everything. Crazy.
This is a good example of how pushed is Throne of Eldraine. Read this friggin' card and it's uncommon. Like, what? The card does everything for 5 mana with its own engine built into it. It didn't even need that stupid activated ability. And they're like, no, we need to have you turn this on if you can't turn it on.
Necropotence, you can draw as many cards as you dare, and then whoop, I'm going to exile them, and then whoop, 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 whoop. It awakens you to the potential of all of these cards.
Necro triggers twice.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
cool.
You want,
oh my God.
Exactly. So every card interacts with it in such a way where it's like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Yeah, this card is it's a mega bomb, in terms of a multiplayer format. It's very, very good in limited formats. And again, it's a good example of how ridiculously pushed that set was. Oh my God. Ruben, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is one we might get in a little bit of a tussle over of, is it a pinger?
Oh.
For my mind, it is a repeatable damage source. Okay. And I also, so the things I like when I'm making these lists are, did they win the Pro Tour? Are they in the cube? Did they have like high tournament pedigree? And are they banned or restricted in any format? And the closest that I could find to a pinger being banned in a format is this card. It is a card I've played a ton of, and it is a repeatable damage source that pings your opponent over and over and over again. It's Ramunap Ruins. So it's close. I'm okay being wrong on this one, but I'm gonna. But let me argue. Ramunap Ruins is a desert from Hour of Devastation, part of the desert activated ability uncommon cycle. It taps for a colorless. Tap, pay 1 life, add a red, or pay 2 colorless, 2 red, and tap and sacrifice a desert. Ramunap Ruins deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now, this card also won a Pro Tour. It was in Ramunap Red in the hands of PV, who won on the back of Bomat Couriers and Hazarets, as you do. And this was a way to close out games. Oftentimes, red decks have a hard time closing out games, especially against the types of decks that can keep boards clear. Ramunap Ruins, being a land, was tough to deal with. And basically every Ramunap Ruins, every Scavenger Grounds, and every Sunscorched Desert that you drew for the rest of the game was 2 damage.
I'll allow it.
2
yeah,
damage.
I think it's fine.
2 damage.
It's okay. I mean, and it was a very powerful card. This was the one that got snagged in the energy bannings. Is that correct?
Yes.
As I recall?
This is the one they got rid of Rogue Refiner, Attune with Ether, Ramunap Ruins, and Justice for Feroz.
As a way to kind of like level out the whole format.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. They were basically saying, look, the next best thing is the red deck. So instead of just having to deal with that, we're just going to get it out of the way early and then move on from there. This is a card I can imagine. I don't know if they regretted it per se, but it definitely putting damage that you could even do multiple times on a land, uncounterable, can't really stop it, really hard to prevent it, whatever, is a thing that they didn't really want, ultimately.
Right. I mean, we've seen Wrath's Edge before, we'd seen Shivan Gorge before, but this was somehow a bridge too far with Ramunap Ruins, and it kind of took over.
Well, maybe it's just because of the setting that it was in.
Possibly.
Like had it been a different time, maybe it would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole problem with the energy is that they were going to shrink standard, but then they didn't, and suddenly you could use the Embercools with the Aetherworks Marvel. Or whatever.
Yeah.
It got ridiculous. But my pick here for number 7 is it's one of the ultimate callbacks. I absolutely love the whole cycle of taking old cards and putting them on a stick, making an old card into a Magus, because Magus is awesome. Magus is now a very special word in the Magic lexicon.
Yeah.
If you have a Magus, you're like, oh, what spell is that one taking? Well, once upon a time, there was a scroll that was cursed. And instead, we have a Magus of the Scroll in Time Spiral. It's only printing. Don't worry. It's 22 cents. But Magus of the Scroll is a 1 red mana 1/1. It's a rare human wizard, and it's 3 generic mana tap : choose a card name, then reveal a card at random from your hand. If that card has the chosen name, it deals 2 damage to any target. This is amazing when you only have 1 card in hand, and Cursed Scroll slipped under the radar, and no one thought that card was that good, and then suddenly it's a auto 4 of in all the aggressive decks back in the day. Magus of the Scroll was still played, as I recall. It wasn't like an all-star because it's a 1 mana 1/1 or whatever and can die a lot easier. But the idea of having repeatable damage is still a awesome and sexy one, and it was super cool and awesome at the time.
Yeah, this card saw a lot of play in Block Constructed. 2 decks made the top 8 of Pro Tour Yokohama in 2007. That's the one that Guillaume won with Blue-Black Control in the Blue-Black Control final. 4 Magus of the Scrolls in that deck. Gruul aggro and mono red. I think there was also like a Boros deck that was popular at the time, and I played a ton of it in mono red. I love this card.
In 2006 Champs, there was a Boros deck with Savannah Lions. Yeah, baby. Sarah Avenger.
Yes, right. That was the deck. The Sarah Avenger deck.
Yeah, Sarah Avenger also, by the way, is one of those cards that R&D thought was going to be a tournament all-star, was going to define the metagame, and didn't do much. Wasn't an aggro deck. That was pretty cool, but it didn't quite take over
He's playing Death and Taxes sometimes now.
Yeah, a little bit. Let's move on here to number 6. Aaron, what's number 6?
I just realized my number 6 might be controversial because it doesn't actually hit players; it just hits creatures.
I'm fine with it.
It's fine.
Okay.
It pings. It pings. Mine only hit players with ruins. So,
all right. Well, it certainly does. It pings very well. It saw play in standard. It saw a little bit of play in modern as a sideboard card. But I have a lot of love for this card, and I need no excuse to use it. My number 6 is Bow of My Lea. Bow of My Lea is 1 colorless and 2 green. It's a legendary enchantment artifact, originally printed in Theros, and it says attacking creatures you control have death touch. You can also pay 1 colorless, a green, and tap it to choose 1. You can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, or you can do 2 damage to a creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or you can put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you're facing a mill deck, you've got an answer to that. If you're trying to deal with flyers, which green is sometimes weak to, you can do that. You can also just gain life if you're up against a burn deck, or if you're just trying to grow your creatures and make them bigger, you can put +1/+1 counters on them. Your attacking creatures have death touch, so it doesn't matter how big they are. I played this in the Constellation decks as a sideboard card. You puts it down, you get your Constellation triggers. I was a really big fan of the artifact weapons. You had the Bidon of Thassa, the Whip of Erebos, the Hammer of Perforos. I think they all saw play to various degrees.
Pretty much.
I was really happy with these cards. I thought it was a great kind of space to play in. But this one being one of my favorites, it being so versatile, where it's very rare that you can find nothing to do with the Bow of My Lea. I think I played with it in Modern, either Deathpot or Jund, because again, Jund just wanting to be good against everything, and this card can really help you do that.
Just does everything, man. And you can ping flyers every turn. This is also really good because attacking creatures have death touch. A lot of people would use this in concert with Pelucranos.
Yes.
You would attack before blockers, ping the two monsters on the other side of the board. So you go turn 3 Bow, turn 4 Pelucranos, turn 5 you have 5 mana, attack XX a green, which lets you ping 2 of the blockers and attack your 7/7. Bow of My Lea is spectacular.
Like the whole cycle I really love. There's Bidon of Thassa, the Hammer of Perforos, the Spear of Heliod, the Whip of Erebos, and like those all kind of do sort of one-ish, they sort of have their static and they do their thing. And then Bow of My Lea is like, here's just take everything.
Take everything.
Just all of the abilities. This does this and that and this and that. And I do miss legendary enchantment artifacts in Theros Beyond Death. I wish they would have had some.
Yeah.
Maybe the other gods, for example, the way they could have referenced them in a way that would been interesting. But regardless, Bow of My Lea is great. Ruben, what's number 6?
Well, we talked about Magus of the Scroll. So I think that I'm well within my right to talk about the OG Cursed Scroll. If we are going to talk about pingers.
What?
Pingers are things that are repeatable damage sources, and Cursed Scroll I think certainly applies. Same text as Magus of the Scroll, except for it costs 1 colorless mana and is originally from Tempest, and it's pay 3 and tap, name a card. Target opponent chooses a card name target opponent chooses a card at random from your hand. If the card has the chosen name, Cursed Scroll deals 2 damage to any target. So, of course, this deck, won a Pro Tour. Dave Price won with Dead Guy Red at Pro Tour LA in 99. And it's just, it's so good. It's one of the first cards I remember casting. Just like, the red decks back in the day had no way to garner card advantage. There was no risk factor. There was none of this exile the top card of your library stuff, like light up the stage.
Not even close.
What you had was Cursed Scroll, and you were happy because you would go draw step, name mountain, show you a mountain, deal you 2 damage, play a mountain. Next turn, draw a step, name mountain, play a mountain. And then, like, you were flooded, but at least you were dealing damage, right?
Absolutely.
Not to mention the fact that you could play this in non-red decks, too.
Yeah.
You could play this in blue control decks with 30 counterspells and, curse scroll your opponent 10 times.
Yeah, Curse Scroll can just end games all by itself. And again, it's one of those cards that I like it also because it just flew under the radar. People just didn't really grok that, wait a minute, they're going to get down to 1 card with this. That's what you want to do. Instead of it's like, oh, it's fun, it's neat. You're going to pick one of these cards and see what happens. It's like, no, this is actually really cool and a really nice way of dealing damage over and over again. For my number 6, much like Pashalik Mons, Wizards does like to go down. I can imagine there's a spreadsheet somewhere in Wizards of the Coast of all the legendary creatures they have not made cards of. And when we got around to this time in Magic, everyone was like, okay, we have talked about her and talked about her and talked about her and talked about her. And you have to show me and tell me who Jaya Ballard, Task Mage, really is.
Okay.
Jaya Ballard, Task Mage, showed up in Time Spiral. For 2 red and a generic mana, she is a 2/2 rare legendary human spell shaper. It has 3 abilities. 1 red, tap, discard a card, destroy target blue permanent. Okay, so that's the red elemental blast. Pyroblast. For a red and generic mana, tap, discard a card, she deals 3 damage to any target. A creature dealt damage this way can't be regenerated. That's Incinerate.
Incinerate, yep.
And then I believe Flame Wave is the last one. Inferno. It's 2 red, 5 generic mana, tap, discard a card, she deals 6 damage to each creature and each player. So she kind of burns herself up in the process. But again, it references 3 classic burn spells. I think all of them have flavor text from Jaya on them, as I recall. So again, Jaya Ballard was just this card that at the time we were so pumped for because we could figure out finally who this girl is, which is awesome. And because it references regeneration, they're probably never going to reprint it. So outside of like mystery boosters or something. So this was your chance to get both the character, the card itself, and the card was like a huge bomb and limited. Like you couldn't beat this card. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. This is just one of the... Well, first of all, I've searched for many a Jaya Ballard with Imperial Recruiter in my Painter Servant Grindstone decks because you paint her on blue and then Jaya becomes repeatable, Vindicate every turn.
Yeah.
Incinerate pinging is high quality gasoline to being able to deal 3 and then 3 and then 3. Who cares about that second toughness on Deathrite Shaman? Just exile that, get that thing out of here. Jaya Ballard, in addition to being just like my favorite character, just like, I love Grandma Jaya. I love hot young lady Jaya, hot in more ways than one. I love everything about Jaya Ballard, and I'm so glad it's here.
Yeah, that hip, man, that hip rocks it, which is awesome. All right, let's move on here to number 5, Midway. Aaron, what's number 5?
My number 5 is the only higher on my list.
Oh, okay then. Ruben, what's your number 5?
Okay, this is the one we might get in a fight over.
Oh, boy.
So, bear with me.
Another reprint of Cursed Scroll on an enchantment, perhaps?
I wish. No. Okay. So, what is a ping? What is a ping? When you think pinger, what is it? Tap, deal 1 damage to target creature or to any target. Right? Yep. Now, what if I told you that there was a sorcery that said until end of turn, permanents you control gain, tap. This permanent deals 1 damage to any target. Well, that card's named Flame Fusillade, and it's originally from Ravnica City of Guilds. For 3 colorless and a red, you can turn everything into a pinger for the turn. Most notably, this is in Flame Vault, which is a way old school vintage deck, where you would use Flame Fusillade and Time Vault, because Time Vault could untap itself for free by skipping your next turn. But if you're just like, skip the next turn, deal a damage, skip the next turn, deal a damage, skip every turn I will ever have for the rest of the game,
deal
I've never heard of this. Million damage. Yeah, that was the old combo back when Time Vault... Time Vault's been errated a number of times.
Yes, Time Vault was weird.
That was a middle errata of Time Vault, where you would Flame Fusillade and then deal infinite damage with all of your Time Vaults. And you could also wish for it. You would Burning Wish for your Flame Fusillade in that deck, and it was like a blue-red control kind of deck.
I was expecting this card to be like super duper good in constructed formats. 4 mana, it's just too much, but the idea of turning all of your permanents into pingers is super sweet. This card was definitely on my short list. I was definitely thinking about this one because it's a hell of a card. It's super cool, I think, in multiplayer formats where you're able to give all your permanents because you're probably going to have a lot of permanents. Yeah. And yeah, Time Vault used to be weird. You could skip as many turns as you wanted. Does that even work anymore? Is that a thing you can do?
No, it doesn't. I don't think it works anymore.
I don't think it does it, though.
But also, Voltaic Key exists. Like, why paying when you could just take the rest of the turns?
Right. Why pay a 4 mana sorcery when you can just play your 1 mana, then your 2 mana?
Yeah, I don't think it works anymore.
Yeah. But still, super cool. Let's move on here to my number 5. I mean, if we're going to talk about Ravnica City of Guilds, we might as well talk about Guild Pact. This card is a cube all-star. I had this thing in my cube till the day I sold it. It was fun. It was great. It was awesome. It was good and limited. It was very powerful for the time. And there's still lots of people, I think, who enjoy playing with Gelectrode. Gelectrode is one of my favorite pingers. It's a red, a blue, and a generic mana. It is an 0/1 that is a uncommon creature weird. I love weirds. Because they're weird.
Obviously, you're with the two of us.
I know, right? That's weirdos. Hey. It has tap, it deals 1 damage to any target, but whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may untap Gelectrode. So to be able to kind of, ping you, opt, untap it, ping this, blah, whatever, do the combos so you can get rid of their multiple toughness creatures and stuff. Gelectrode was in and of itself kind of one of those cards that kind of kept the red-blue spell deck together in Cube, and then I think it saw a little bit of play in Standard back in the day.
Do you know what the art?
Tiny bit.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Do you know what the art reminds me of?
What's that?
Do you remember when we were kids? Well, Ruben and I, at least. When we were kids, and the children's toothpaste that looked like the blue glittery. It was like fruity tasting.
Yeah,
that's what this reminds me of. Where like if you squeezed out that tube, it would just look like a Gelectrode, like that crest. Like, just have such fond memories of it.
That is the toothpaste that when I went to 4-H camp and we had nothing to eat. We ate that toothpaste. We passed it around to each other in the bunks.
What the heck?
And then we all got severe stomach aches, and
Where did you go to summer camp Deliverance? Like, how did you have no food?
We got there late, and they're just like, sorry, no supper. We'll see you in the morning. And we're like, but we're hungry. And so
Jesus.
we're eating toothpaste, ladies and gentlemen. Tennessee in the 80s.
They had toothpaste in Tennessee in the 80s?
Woo! And teeth, too. All right. So we wanted
Some teeth.
Ish. Whatever. It's fine.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was crazy. Let's move on here to number 4. Aaron, what's number 4?
My number 4 has easily become one of the MVPs for my Pashalik Mons deck. I had never really gotten any use out of this card until the other day, and it's just amazing. And if you would have told me a goblin would fill me with this much joy, I can't even do it. It's so busted. It also sees some legacy play as well in the Goblins decks. If you really want to have a good time, strap a Basilisk collar on this thing and you are golden. My number 4 is Goblin Sharpshooter. I just love it so much. So Goblin Sharpshooter is 2 colorless and a red. It's a creature type goblin originally from Onslaught, 1 power and 1 toughness. Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during your untap step. What are you going to do? Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap Goblin Sharpshooter, and you can tap it to deal 1 damage to a creature or player. So, you tap your Goblin Sharpshooter, you sacrifice a goblin to Pashalik Mons, you deal 1 damage from Pashalik Mons, you untap Goblin Sharpshooter, and before you know it, this thing just turns into a machine gun. Again, I was playing the other day with Goblin Chirurgeon, and so you tap everything with your Chiron negotiations, you feed everything to this, you then untap your goblin so many times, and it just gets out of control. I did get to put a Basilisk collar on this, and just pew, 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 just killed everything under the sun, and it just makes me so damn happy, and I can't wait until I can play it in paper and just whoop, 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 whoop. It's so good.
Yeah.
This was a card originally showcased in the Goblin Bidding deck.
Yeah.
Run around 2003-ish or so. And is a classic goblin at this point.
The Mike Uziel art, the new Goblin Sharpshooter
the
from
hammer.
the Secret Lair drop. Well, there's also the hammer from Lane Reynolds, which is hilarious as well. Yeah, goblins are amazing, and Goblin Sharpshooter is just one of the best of all time.
I believe, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure the Commander 2013 version, that actually is Wayne Reynolds' face. Right there in front of Goblin Sharpshooter.
Nice.
Which I thought was amazing. Yeah,
Love it.
This card is great. It's been great for a long time. It's super combo-y. Also one of those cards that I just don't see them making anymore. This type of post repeatable damage that's abusable with sacking creatures and all this other crazy stuff. But
even just by itself, like, if, God help you, I was playing against a Reese the Redeemer deck, and it was like, dinner's on.
It's true. Yeah, that'll do it.
All right. Ruben, what's number 4?
My number 4, I chose for it to be number 4 because it's a 4/4 for 4. This specimen appears to be broken.
Nice.
My number 4 is Masticore. Masticore was originally printed in Urza's Destiny. It is a rare artifact creature Masticore. 4/4 for 4 colorless mana, or 4 generic mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Masticore unless you discard a card. It also has pay 2 mana, regenerate Masticore, and pay 2 mana, Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature. Masticore is one of the very few cards that has won both a Pro Tour and Worlds in different hands. It's also won 2 different Worlds. 2 different Pro Tours. It was in George W. Bosch, which was Rickard Osterberg's New Orleans deck. That was the big red Bosch throw artifacts at you deck. And then Kai Bude won with it with Wildfire in 1999. And then, of course, John Finkel won that famous finals at Brussels in 2000 with the Tinker deck. Masticore is just spectacular. Many other Masticores that are inspired by Masticore have been printed in the years since, like Razor Masticore and Lesser Masticore. It is just such a great card.
Where did you get the specimen is broken thing from?
That is the flavor text.
Oh, Deep Analysis. Okay, because I couldn't figure out where that was from. It's also on the reserve list.
Yes, and in fact, it was one of the cards that pissed off collectors so bad when it was included in From the Vault Relics, because there for like just a smidge, Wizards was like, well, premium cards aren't really on the reserve list. They didn't even exist when we made the reserve list, so let's just make premium versions of these reserve list cards. Nah, dog, that wasn't going to happen. Once Phyrexian Negator showed up in a dual deck, all hell broke loose, and they stopped that crap. So, but Masticore in and of itself, again, that's another one of those awesome words in the Magic lexicon that everyone's like, that's Masticore. This creature appears to be broken. It just ran everything. Like these days, it's fine, right? Those days, creatures were terrible. So to have a really powerful, really sweet creature that you could use and abuse turn after turn was remarkable at the time. Moving here to my number 4. So, Wizards doesn't like to give a lot of pinging abilities in Standard. At least I've noticed. Or they'll make you jump through hoops. They'll make you pay a bunch of mana. You don't just get tap, deal a damage to a thing. You know what I'm saying? Because there are cards in Standard right now that can deal damage to creatures and players. But you got to pay a bunch of mana. You got to do a thing, sack a creature, whatever. But back in the day, particularly around the world of World Wake had a card called Basilisk Collar. Okay? And when you combined it with Cunning Sparkmage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the fun that we had. Yeah. It was ridiculous. Cunning Sparkmage is a red and 2 generic mana for an uncommon human shaman. It's an 0/1 with haste that has tap. It deals 1 damage to any target. This card is dope, and you stuck that collar on there, and you killed whatever they had. It just right like that, out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, they had to deal with this stupid 0/1 before they could actually play another creature. So it was cool. It provided a weird kind of gameplay setup, particularly sort of a play pattern in Standard there for a while. And of course, my Cunning Sparkmage could kill your Cunning Sparkmage, and that was also a thing at the time.
Love it.
Yeah. Originally, there was, I think there was a common from like 5th Dawn that was 1 red for an 0/1 with haste that pinged. And then they... Oh,
yeah, you're right. Volshock Sorcerer.
Volshock Sorcerer.
Yep.
And then they didn't really change much, but because of Basilisk Collar, because of the environment in which it lived, which was very creature heavy, this was the time of Birthing Pod, there were a ton of X1s running around, Cunning Sparkmage, and especially in concert with Basilisk Collar, left a huge impact.
Yeah, and don't think I knew Volshock Sorcerer off the top of my head. It's because I read it earlier when I was making my list. But it was pretty cool at the time. Let's move here to number 3. Aaron, what's number 3?
One of my favorite decks in Vintage is the Oath of Druids deck, and of all the fatties you can choose from, my number 3 was good enough to be an Oath of Druids target, which is not easy to do. There are a lot of good creatures being printed nowadays, and this one made the cut. Saw a bit of standard play in the Is It Drakes deck, or just the Is It decks, as just being a reliable, fatty that can close out games. Turns out you can also close games in Vintage too, what with all the card draw, and especially if you pair this with Grizzlebrand, you can have a really good time. My number 3 is Niv Mizzet Perrin.
Yep.
So Niv Mizzet Perrin is from Guilds of Ravnica, 3 blue and 3 red for a legendary creature Dragon Wizard with 5 power and 5 toughness. This spell cannot be countered, so that's pretty neat. Flying, whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet Perrin deals 1 damage to any target, and then whenever a player casts an instant or a sorcery, you draw a card. So that's any player. So if they do something, you draw a card before you get to respond, and then you can respond and draw another card. If you oath into this, an oath into Grizzlebrand, and then you activate Grizzlebrand, that's 7 damage. That's whoop, 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 whoop. You might as well just scoop at this point. Ancestral Recall, all of your draw spells become burn spells. This card is just really, really good. Can close out games frighteningly fast. Beautiful art on it by Svetlin Velinov. And the fact that it was able to see play at both ends of the spectrum, being standard and vintage, is really saying something about how powerful this card is.
Oh, there was definitely a feeling of, particularly in standard, if I untap with Niv Mizzet Perrin, I can't lose. You just can't lose. And whatever they do, you're drawing cards, dealing damage. Ancestral Recall draws you 4 and deals 4 damage. Like, that is incredible in and of itself. This card is, honestly, I'm a little shocked it's not played a little bit more. But I think it's pigeonholed so hard in that mana cost that it's really hard, and you can't really splash it. You're not going to play in a 3-color deck. But damn, I have never felt so unbeatable as when I untap with this card. I'm like, winning this game. Untap with Niv Mizzet. It's over. Sorry.
All 3 of the blue-red Niv Mizzets, Firemind, Draco Genius, and Perrin, came close to my top 10 list. Perrin being the one that sees the most play, being that it can't be countered, really. I mean, that is just an incredible line of text on a control finisher.
Absolutely. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3 is of the cards on my list, is the most competitive, traditional pinger I think that's ever been printed. Traditional being it's a creature that taps to deal damage.
Okay.
It won a Pro Tour. It's seen a bunch of competitive play. It's been reprinted a couple times. And I don't think it gets the respect it deserves. I almost put it higher on my list, but my number 3 is Fireslinger.
Oh, yeah.
Fireslinger is a colorless and a red for a 1/1 human wizard from Tempest. Tap, Fireslinger deals 1 damage to any target and 1 damage to you. So, instead of 3 mana, like your traditional Rootwater Hunter or Zurin Spellcaster or another creature that I'm sure we'll discuss later, you spend 2 mana and you deal yourself some damage, much like the Orcish Cannoneers earlier. Fireslinger was really good in the Dead Guy Red deck that Dave Price won Pro Tour LA in 98, alongside Cursed Scroll, being able to pick off opposing X1s like other Fireslingers or Canyon Wildcat. There were other White Weenie creatures that existed at the time, like the Knights of various kinds. It was just a really solid pinger.
Yeah, this card is one of those cards that, like, it doesn't look like much, but you got to remember what we were working with back then. Jackal Pup just, like, set the world aflame. You know, it was like, holy cow, Fireslinger, a repeatable piece of damage. That's incredible. And it's also, Wizards doesn't like to use these types of effects because it drives out the X1s of the format. You don't want to play X1s if somebody's got this built into their mono red deck, and this is what all the mono red decks use. So you kind of just push them right out. So that's, sort of one of the reasons they will not put them. But Fireslinger in and of itself, I've played with this card in cubes before, in Pauper cubes before. This card is super cool. But I definitely will have to raise you on the tournament level card. All right, because the card at my number 3 takes your card outside and smacks it upside the head. Get out of here! Don't come back. Look at me. Look at me like this. This card sees play in decks from 2012 all the way till 2018. Lots and lots of awesome finishes. This card has been paired up with Basilisk Collar, as you would, because it's a creature. But not just that, it's seen nowadays more or less in the sideboard of the Humans deck to take care of tokens. Because Izzet Staticaster is the real king here.
My number 5.
Nice.
That's the queen, honey. That's
the queen. That's right.
You.
It's a red, a blue, and a generic mana for a uncommon human wizard that's an 0/3 that has flash and haste and tap. Deal 1 damage to target creature and each other creature with the same name as that creature.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I faced this card in Dredge, I thought that whatever name they chose, they were stuck on. I didn't know that they could change it. So like the first time they went like, whoop, Narcomoeba. And it was really unfortunate. And I was like, oh, well, I'm just not going to play any more Narcomoebas. That's fine. I'll show you. And then I was like, oh, I'll just go ahead and return these Bloodghast. And they're like, yeah, Bloodghast. And 1 damage. And I was like, I was like, but you already named something. They were like, I'm not locked in. Like, I could just pick a different creature every time. And I was like, damn it.
Yep. Same name, dead. Goblin tokens?
Well, Lingering Souls tokens, I think, was the
Spirit
standard...
Mana dorks?
The standard fare. Yeah, being able to take out mana dorks, being able to take out... I mean, any X1 that you can think of short of True Name Nemesis, Izzet Staticaster can take care of. It is probably the best pinger that they've ever actually printed.
Yeah.
It is so good at board control, and it's an 0/3. So it can stand in front of whatever 2/2 happens to be left behind, your Voice of Resurgence or, what have you. But I didn't qualify it as a traditional pinger because it can't do it to a player, but certainly, or a planeswalker, but it certainly is leagues far and away more powerful.
Yeah.
True. And also, it's also an Izzet card, just like Niv Mizzet, which is kind of cool as our number 3.
And it's no Goblin test pilot. But then again, what is?
The
fact that Izzet Staticaster's an 0/3, Test Pilot had to settle for being an 0/2 is egregious.
That's ridiculous. That's just silly. All right, let's move on here to number 2. Aaron, what's number 2?
My number 2 ended up being an absolute game changer. I only recently came into the red mage life, so I haven't been a red mage for long, but I've been a black mage for a very long time, and I can say that this card has changed the way that I play Magic. I love the style of deck that this card embodies. We hadn't really seen anything like it, at least to my knowledge, before it came out, and it's something that Wizards is still allowing us to have with subsequent either functional reprints or cards that do something very similar. My number 2 is Blood Artist. So Blood Artist is 1 colorless in the black. It's a creature type vampire. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. A 0/1 body from Avacyn Restored. This card, it changed the way that you played Magic, these aristocrat sort of style decks where, there's a lot of pinging going on, but you're also gaining life at the same time in such a way to where you don't even really have to attack. You can, but you can also just sort of build this little pillow fort of crappy creatures, quite honestly, like Doom Traveler. And just by blocking, you're taking damage, I'm gaining life. You're building this cushion. You're also giving an aggressive deck this insurance policy of, you can go ahead and cast Supreme Verdict, but you're already at 7? Like, I could still just kill you. Like, it puts the person on the back foot in a very interesting position of, I need to deal with these things. I cannot deal with these things. And so, you look at Zulaport Cutthroat, you look at some of the other versions that have come out since then. And this card really just was a game changer. And I don't think it gets enough credit. It was going for about $4 before Mystery Booster came out, where now it's down to $2. But for an uncommon, you look at the impact of this card, and there's just nothing else like it.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll creep back up to $4.
Yeah.
Give it some time.
Yeah.
This is the Sam Blackiest of all cards. This card, along with Cartel Aristocrat and Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, basically kind of took over the format there for a while.
For a minute, yeah.
And created that inevitability of just like, you're a what? And I got how many creatures? And I'm on what now?
The value and the art, the iconic art of, drawing that paint. I thought that was water. That is actual blood, and you can look really closely and see the corpse hanging in the background. Like, that art just has so many Easter eggs to it, and just an iconic card in every sense of the word.
Right, like you got to play Lingering Souls in Standard with this card, so you had lots of bodies to go straight to the graveyard.
And then we had Zulaport Cutthroat, which gave us the black-green Cryptolith Rites deck, which had, the blister pods and things like that. I mean, it sounds like this is something Wizards is fine with us having to various degrees, and anytime this is a thing, I think now it's just great, and I love it.
Yeah. I mean, we're allowed to have Falconwrath Nobles. We're not really allowed to have... we're allowed to have Vindictive Vampires. We're not allowed to have this at 2 anymore.
Yeah.
The art, by the way, is referencing Curse of Oblivion, which is common in the same set.
You're right.
Nice. Absolutely. That is awesome. So great art, terrific ability, like tournament all-star. Blood Artist is sweet. Ruben, what's number 2?
Number 2 is the only hire I have on my list.
Boy, you know what it is.
Yeah, I know what it is.
You know what it is. All right. My number 2, I'm guessing, I'm a little shocked, actually, that this isn't Ruben's number 1. I have no idea what Ruben's number 1 is at this point.
Leviathan.
Yeah, exactly. Dropping them Leviathan beats up here.
Another version of Curse Scroll that we missed? Is there...
That's right.
Maybe?
Kinda. Probably.
Scroll Rack? I don't know.
It could be. This is one of the best cards, I feel, that has ever been made for the ability that it has, for the efficiency that it's got. It's still played in tournaments to this day. It won a Magic Fest in Indianapolis last year in the Burn deck. How could you possibly not include Grim Lavamancer as part of your list? Grim Lavamancer is my number 2. It is absolutely incredible. It's 1 red mana for a 1/1 rare human wizard, and it has 1 red, tap, exile 2 cards from your graveyard, : it deals 2 damage to any target. That is efficiency.
That original art from Torment is just, it's so good.
It's so good. So, like, the art's amazing. The ability is incredible. This is a staple in those decks. This is a staple in Cube. Like, you don't have a Cube and not have Grim Lavamancer in the red. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? I don't know.
Also sees play in the Delver deck sometimes as a way to, burn up, no pun intended, burn up those cantrips or those fetch lands that you're not using. It gives burn some much needed inevitability because sometimes, they flood out or they don't have anything to do. And so this, kind of gives you something to do. Those burn spells can then convert into a burn spell. And so it's great against opposing creature decks if you're dealing with any mana dorks, mana birds, any elves. This is a great sideboard card in the Jund decks. I think sometimes they even main deck it too, depending on the meta. But just a really, really great card with just such low cost.
And also is a really good, trump kind of card against opposing Deathrite Shamans, which kind of counts as a pinger, I think, by our definitions here. Yeah, Grim Lavamancer is spectacular. It uses a resource that you can't really use in any other way, or haven't traditionally been able to use in any other way. You have a bunch of fetch lands in the burn decks, and previous to things like Treasure Cruise, you just couldn't use your graveyard once it was used up anymore, and Grim Lavamancer gave you that inevitability.
Yeah, I'm really curious, Ruben. Why was this card not on your list?
I just didn't include it on my list.
I'm just curious if there was any reason you're like, Graham, get out of here.
No, I didn't have any particular reason.
It's okay.
It's not presently in the Magic Online Cube, and it didn't win a Pro Tour. So those are like my early barometers of what I put on my list, but 100% should be near any top 10 list.
Fair enough. All right, so let's move on here to our number 1, Ruben's number 2, and our, as in my and Aaron's number 1.
Yeah.
You can't have a pinger.
Apparently you can if you're Ruben.
If you don't know what a pinger is, where do pingers come from? When 2 pingers love each other very much. Aaron, tell me what our number 1 is.
I mean, it's amazing. You don't even call it, when you're so good that you don't even call you by your name anymore. You got a nickname that has transcended time. Our number 1 is Prodigal Sorcerer, also known as Timmy.
That's right. Timmy.
So Prodigal Sorcerer is 2 colorless and a blue, is originally printed in limited edition alpha, creature type human wizard, 1 power, 1 toughness. Very simple. You just tap it and do 1 damage to any target. So, I don't know of anybody who still says that they're going to Tim you or anything, but for a while they're growing up. When I first learned how to play this game, it was right around the time of Ice Age and Fallen Empires, and that was what people would say to you. They'd say, I'm going to Tim you for 1. I'm going to Timmy you for 1. This is part of the reason why the archetype exists of the Timmy, that we talk about when it comes to, are you a Spike? Are you a whatever? And I mean, it's just in the art, that smug old man just looking at you, that Doug Schuler art. There's just nothing else like it.
Yeah, it's like back then. Again, there were multiple creatures that were going just right along with this. With Prodigal Sorcerer, there was Rootwater Hunter, there was Zurin Spellcaster, all the exact. There was Cicada Firewalker.
Cicada Firewalker, Thornwind Fairies. Let's see, other blue ones. I mean, there were the Portal. There were Mawcore is a great one. Fledgling Mawcore as well. There's a couple of Portal ones. Apprentice Sorcerer and Capricious Sorcerer.
Wu Longbowman is from Three Kingdoms. Looks like.
Yep, and then when they moved it over to red, but you kept it as a 1/1 for 3 usually.
Yeah.
With Volshock Sorcerer, Vithian Stinger, things like that.
Right. So this to me it's my number one, not close with a bullet, because like we wouldn't have pingers. We wouldn't even discuss what a pinger or a TIM or whatever is if it didn't exist in alpha and get us started that way. So yeah, Prodigal Sorcerer is awesome. But Ruben, you have to tell us what in the world is your number one.
Look, when we defined what pingers were, it was dealing 1 damage to any target as a repeatable source of damage. There's only one card that is that has 1 a Pro Tour and is in the cube and qualifies with those requirements. It is a very common win condition in a number of different decks, especially in Modern. Was a standard all-star, and it's going to continue to see play pretty much forever. My number one is Walking Ballista.
Nice.
Walking Ballista costs XX for a 0/0 artifact creature construct, and it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. It has the following abilities. Pay 4 mana, put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista, and remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista. It deals 1 damage to any target. Yeah. This is, these days, Sultai Delirium is the main source of this, as Joel Larson won PT Brussels in 2020 with his sort of homebrewed Sultai Delirium. But it also sees play in Urzatron, it sees play in Hardened Affinity and Regular Affinity. Back when it was in Standard, it was all over the place, from Golgari Constrictor decks to Creature Toolbox decks to Eldrazi to vehicles. It was basically everywhere for everyone. No card, I'm hard-pressed to think of a card that has been as ubiquitous in Standard, in Pioneer, in Modern, even Legacy and Vintage as Walking Ballista.
Yeah, I mean, this is a card that sees play in shops. I mean, any deck that allows you to make a lot of mana very quickly, this is a card that you want to pour that mana into. It's completely replaced Triskelion in Vintage. No one even talks about that card anymore. This is where you want to be. Eldrazi Tron has outpaced Green Tron in Modern largely because of this card. Eldrazi decks are starting to see play in Legacy again because of Storm and Doomsday, and also as an answer to all the Breach decks that were running around. I mean, so you have, 4 formats of dominance, 5 if you count Pioneer. I mean, Standard, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Pioneer. That's 5 formats that this card still sees playing, and Kaladesh came out how long ago? The card is just unreal good. It pairs very well with things like Arcbound Ravager, Hardened Scales. I mean, by itself, it's terrifying, but it's the things that you can run with it that are just obnoxious. Being able to smack you with a really big body and then turn around and finish you off with its own counters. The combat math behind this is so intricate. Can also sacrifice as a way to get rid of bridges if you're playing against a Dredge player or a Bridgevine player. You can ping somebody, you can kill creatures with it. It does everything. It's just so good.
It slices, it dices, it Julienne fries. All right, fine. I'll give you the $21 format staple on all the formats.
Right. And it's only ever been printed in Aether Revolt.
Yeah, that's
right. I think that we need some Walking Ballistas coming our way sometime soon.
Walk like a ballista.
Oh, this would have been a welcome addition in the Mystery Booster alongside the 1,700 other cards.
Well,
it's fine. It's whatever. Cannot win them all, but Walking Ballista can win a lot. Yeah. This card, the mana sync ability is not to be underestimated. The fact that it's just colon to use, it's free to remove the counters, which is incredible. It provides inevitability. It's a format all-star, and yeah, that's a hell of a number one. I'll take it. And that is our top 10 pingers. You'll see them on the screen right now for your review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Yo, excuse me, I got to pew out of here. Just
pew, 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 pew. Thank you, Ruben.
There are some who call me Tim.
God, we're going to move here to our Final slide. Goodness gracious. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-host, Aaron Camel and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at MagicMikesPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMikesPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes or Spotify. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.